Hello, everyone. Welcome to another office hour. I'm Dr. Claire Moon, and we're going to talk about astrology for about an hour. And if people come, I'll take their questions. So if you are here live, of course, you know the drill. There's a chat over there. You can ask me your questions. And otherwise, I have a couple things on my list, including one question from last month that I kind of tried to answer on the spot, but I wanted to circle back around to. So I am going to do one of those. I actually completely spaced this office hour this week. I looked at my schedule for today and I said, "Oh wow, I have an office hour tonight." Usually I do a call for questions a few days before, and I completely forgot. I was still wrapping up the end of my holiday season with family, and yeah, so I didn't do a call for questions. But yeah, hopefully people show up. Otherwise, I'll just talk, as I so often do. So the first, well, hello, Holly, welcome. Yeah, and if you're in the chat, say hi. Let me know where you're coming from. Um, of course, let me know if you have any astrology questions. And also fair game, talking about transits. I usually do my monthly forecast at the end of every month. But this is another place where if you have questions about certain transits or anything like that, let me know. I can't usually do too many like birth charty things unless I have your chart. And I don't do that in this space usually. However, one thing I'm thinking about for 2026, because my 2025 reflection event went so well and was so much fun, I want to do it quarterly, maybe. And what that was just a gallery reading event, essentially. I just kind of open my doors, open house, people come in and get your chart read. But the catch is you're getting your chart read in a group in front of other people and for only like 15 to 20 minutes usually. So that's more of that format, which I am thinking about doing again quarterly in 2026. We'll see how busy I get. But I kind of, I don't know. I had a really good time when I did the my recent reflection event for 2025. Like three people showed up, but three people was the perfect number. It was really nice. So if I could keep getting like under 10 people quarterly, I think that would be really fun. Anyway, I digress. I think my first topic I want to look at today, and this is, I forget, I failed to note who asked this question last month, but it was around the return of someone to their home or the return of someone to their homeland. So the question, particularly about immigration, being able to return or find a better living situation. And then I had said that there was something around this in Dorotheus, and there was, and I found it, and that's what we're going to talk about today. And then after we talk about that, I had more of like a philosophy corner thing around how we talk about astrology to other people and to ourselves. And then otherwise, I just have like Saturn and Aries thoughts, just a bunch of random, I've been collecting just a bunch of little thoughts about Saturn and Aries. So if no one has any questions, that's the itinerary today. Hello, KWOW. So let's start with this immigration traveler type question. And the idea is that someone is far away from their home or has left their home, and the question is around their return. And then the original questioner also had a part in there about will they be able to find a better living situation, which is kind of a different question, but I think still one we can talk about. So the part of this book, so Carmen Astrologicum, this is the Benjamin N. Dykes translation of the Umar el-Tabari translation. So it was translated from Greek into Pahlavi into Arabic, I think, and then into Latin. But Dr. Benjamin Dykes translated this from the Arabic. And then I believe also they got some Greek source text. So this is kind of a reconstruction. But this is what we have. And this is on page 261, the chapter called Turning Away from the Journey. And I thought that was kind of a funny name, and I actually didn't clock that this was the correct chapter at first. I looked at other chapters first because I didn't realize what they meant. But what they mean by that, turning away from the journey, it's like if you're on a journey, you're turning away from it to go home. You're like, I'm done with this journey. I am turning away from it, and I am gonna go home or settle or not be traveling anymore. So then we want to figure out when are these people going to turn away from their travels and turn away from their journey. And so this is a book on elections for the most part, which is when we're trying to pick a good time to do a thing in order to get a particular outcome. And in this case, the idea is partially that you would elect a time to depart in order to get the outcome of being able to return home safely, or being able to say if you weren't intending on returning home, but trying to find a better land, like when would you depart? So there's part of this that speaks to like a specifically timed, like if you know when they either landed in their new location. So that's another chart is like if you know the moment that the person landed in the place they travel to, you can look at that astrology or the departure astrology. When were they leaving? So we've got kind of two possibilities of charts that we could look at, the departure or the arrival. If you don't know either, that's okay. And you can use your best estimate if it's like to the week or the month. There's also, and this is more my own conjecture, and maybe this is assumed, I don't know if this is allowed, but horary. I assume a lot of these same principles work in horary astrology, which is when you pull the chart up for the moment you ask a question. So it's the chart for the moment of a question, and it's purely divination. And I imagine that these principles also would work for not only elections, but also horary. Or if you don't know the exact date, the general date. So I'm going to start reading. I'm just going to read this, which I know is kind of dry and boring. So I'm sorry. But yeah, maybe I won't read the whole thing, but I want to read part of this so you can kind of hear what their language is like. So this starts on page 261, chapter 5, 20.23. And if you wanted to know his return to his land, homeland, and home, whether it would be hasty or would difficulty and slowness enter into it, and after what time, then look at the opposite of the sun and his square together. Then look at the opposite of the sun and his square together. So we want to know, is this person returning to his land, homeland, or home, whether that's going to be hasty or difficult and slow. And to do this, we want to locate the sun and then look opposite the sun and square the sun. So let me get my chart up here and make sure I don't have any HIPAA violations happening. Here we go. So in this, I'll just grab this chart as an example. So we can look at the sun. And this would be assuming like, say, you know, you're looking at a horary question, or again, you've got the time of when that person left or when they arrived. But this feels more like, when they're leaving. We locate the sun, then what is opposite and square? We see Jupiter. Are there benefics or malefics around? We've got Venus, Mars, Jupiter, all square, conjunct, opposite. But he only says opposite and square. They don't really mention in this passage conjunctions. But this is actually echoing, there's so much in Hellenistic astrology where you determine the condition of a place or a planet by seeing what is square and what is opposite. And part of this could come from this notion that it's really old one, I think from Petasiris around the notion that squares and oppositions are more potent, louder transits than trines and sextiles. They're just going to be the loudest. And so there's a lot of focus paid attention to that in a lot of different techniques. So this one is the same. Okay, I'm going to go on and read some more. Now, if Jupiter or Venus were in something of these places, then he will turn back from that journey of his quickly and safe. And if anything of the infortunes were in these places, then it delays his turning away from travel and slows it down. And his turning away from travel will be when the infortunes leave their position and when the infortunes were in. And the moon occurs in the opposition of the place where the moon is in the original chart. So it's almost like saying 14 days later, when the moon is in the opposite place that it was, or a square, so seven days later, 14 days later. And if the sun is seen by benefics, fortunates, it makes their return safe, quick. However, if there are malefics around, especially square and opposite, that would delay or make their travel difficult or last longer, essentially. Uh, let's see. Or his turning away from that place of travel of his will be when the sun returns to the place the sun was at the beginning of the journey, which would be like a year later. Or the sun comes to the opposition of the place the sun was at the beginning of the journey, so like 6 months later. And the sun is cleansed with nothing making him unfortunate. Okay, so then we would also, to see someone coming home, back to their homeland, back to, you know, where they feel comfortable. Well, maybe they don't feel comfortable, but coming back to their homeland, turning away from travel. Um, they're looking also at the timing of it. Like, when are they going to come back? So, in the case of the sun here, when the sun either returns to the place the sun was at the beginning of the journey or opposite. So, 6 months to a year later, essentially. So, even just clocking like roughly where the sun is when someone departs, then you can use that as a timing method. And then look again what malefics and benefics are square or opposite the sun to decide if it's going to be difficult, fast, or slow, or easy. Uh, let's see. So part 4, still on page 261. And if he began in the journey when the moon was in the square of the infortunes and their opposition, and the fortunes do not look at her, or the moon connected with any of the infortunes, or any of them were in the square of the moon, then it indicates his turning away from travel of his toward his land and homeland in difficulty, hardship, and trouble, or perhaps he will not return back. So this is basically saying that when the journey begins, if there are any malefics square or opposite the moon, if the moon is essentially having any aspect with malefics like Mars and Saturn, then it's not good. It's that they are going to return to their home with difficulty, hardship, or trouble, or they may not come back. So that's again looking at the chart of when the journey began, when they left, essentially the departure. The book goes on to say, and if the infortunes were not looking at the moon from the opposition and square, well, the fortunes do look at the sun and moon, unless the moon is connected with one of the infortunes, then they will return to their land and homeland. So if the fortunes do look at the sun and moon, so if the benefics are in an aspect with the sun or moon, especially by square or opposition, there's a better chance of that person returning based on the departure chart. And there's also, they have mention of if planets are to the right or left of the moon. So in this case, the moon in Libra, this is saying This is part 6. And if the sign which was on the right of the moon and on her left side had infortunes in it, then with that the moon will be pressed between the infortunes, and it indicates that a powerful blah blah blah. That gets I'm not gonna read that. That looks bad. Bad things happen. So let me say that again. Um, and if the sign which was on the right of the moon and on the left side. Yeah, so this is describing a benefic, or sorry, a malefic enclosure. So if the moon had rays of the malefics on either side, if the moon is in a malefic enclosure, they're saying bad things are going to happen. Yep, we know that about malefic enclosures. So if the moon is getting an aspect from Saturn and Mars on either side, so the moon's separating aspect is Mars or Saturn, and the moon's applying aspect is Mars or Saturn. That does not bode well for returning to your homeland safe or well. And on the other side, if the benefics, so you can do the opposite. If the benefics are sending rays to the moon, especially if it's like a benefic enclosure, the moon is separating from one benefic and moving to another at the time of departure, then you can be sure that the person will return to their homeland. So I think that's about the big gist of it. Basically, look at the sun and the moon. And then they have a part as well uh, about the arrival chart. So they mention on page 263, now, if you wanted to know the condition of his turning away from the journey of his, whether it will be quick and deliberate or slow and distant, then one must look into it when he reaches the land he wanted. So you would look at the sign which becomes the ascending house in the hour, as well as the second place. And if the Lord of the second sign, so it goes on to say a bunch of these things about the second place relative to the rising sign of the moment, the hour essentially that they touched down and landed wherever they were going. And then it gives a lot of the same stuff around, well, not a lot of the same stuff. It has some different rules around the Lord of the second house. So it's looking at kind of the resourcing of the person and how they're going to, what provisions they might have when they're abroad. And then if you go down a little further on page 262, then they get back into some of the same stuff around if the moon is afflicted or not, if the sun is afflicted or not. And then they have some other more specific rules. So all to say, it depends on if you have the chart. If you don't have the chart of the arrival or the departure, I would just run a horary, run a chart for the time you ask the question of, will they return home or will they, find a happiness where they're going? And then look to see the condition of the sun, the condition of the moon, if there are malefics or benefics in square opposition. And then I'm going to add in, just other parts of my understanding. I would also be looking at the sun and the moon's next aspect, similar to what they were talking about more with the enclosure. But if the moon is moving toward Jupiter or Venus, that's a sign they're moving towards something positive or favorable or more stable. If the moon or sun is moving toward Mars or Saturn, they're probably moving towards something more extreme or difficult or less comfortable or less successful. So it's a good question. It's one that does come up a lot. Whether you're just, I mean, you could use these same principles for any kind of travel, really. I think with the sun, I would be looking at more long distance or long-term travel because the sun moves so slowly, talking about people returning after 6 to 12 months versus the moon. I would analyze more for shorter term travel, looking at 7 to 14 days, as like a return time if you're looking at that, or just like faster moving type expectations with travel, look at the moon. But look at where it's applying, look at where it's separating, and that should give you a good idea. Best of luck. Thank you for whoever asked that question. And yeah, it doesn't look like there's anything in the chat, which will bring me to my next point, which does not require a wheel. So we're going to go into the philosophy corner. So this is kind of a Buddhist-y thing a little bit, and it's really related with like how we identify with temporary mind states and temporary feelings and things of this nature. And I was seeing this came up because recently I saw just something on the internet. It was some, I don't know, influencer or wellness person. And they had a good point on a post that they made. They were posting all of these different studies and examples about how depersonalizing our language around feelings actually helps mental health a lot. So, one example of this is how in English and in the Western world, we say, I'm angry, or I'm sad, or I'm lonely. And in other cultures or other languages, they might say, I have sadness, or there is sadness. In Buddhism, they reframe things. Instead of I'm sad, they actually encourage to say, like, think about it as in, there's sadness here. What is here? Oh, this is sadness. Not I am sad, but there is some sadness around. Not that I'm lonely, but there is loneliness or a sense or a feeling. Even saying I feel, even that, I think in Western kind of English language stuff, that's a little bit of it. That gives a little bit of buffer. It doesn't say I am a thing, which our sense of self and the I is much more, I think, in our general understanding, it's much more permanent versus like feelings, thoughts, mind states, much more temporary. And so if we talk about them, even to ourselves, like individually, like, okay, there's sadness here, there's frustration here, or whatever, it just feels, at least to me, a little lighter, a little bit more open. And there's some kind of special sauce in continuing to do that, even if it feels like I think it felt pretty clunky for me at first. Like it's way quicker, easier to just be like, I'm angry, I'm sad. Like it's just like very easy to express that way. Um, but and so yeah, it's like more words to say, this is loneliness or there is loneliness here. I feel like Data from Star Trek. Like, oh, this is loneliness. Like, um, but there's some special sauce in the way minds work and brains work with language that it helps. And apparently, allegedly, somewhere there's a study to prove it. I don't need a study. I don't care about studies. I know it for myself, and it's something that the Buddha taught, and it's pretty easy to figure out if you try it. So I recommend everyone experiment with that, see if that feels okay to try talking about our emotions and our temporary mind states in more of this depersonalized, unidentified way, where we are still recognizing them, we're still allowing them, but we're able to investigate with a little bit of space. So that's thing one, which leads me to more of an astrological point. When we're looking at transits and we're talking about them with ourselves, or maybe even more impactful when we're talking about it at large and mass. If I'm out here forecasting, right? Like I'm talking about myself. You're talking about a potential field of mind states or potential feelings that come with certain symbolism that's coming up. And a lot of us astrologers are talking about that with other people, or we're sharing about potentials and we're talking about feelings and what people might experience in the future. And so then what I'm getting at is, okay, we can kind of reframe feelings and temporary mind states and depersonalize them, de-identify them. We can do that on an individual level and with our own kind of self-talk and self-dialogue. And even again, if it's clunky or weird, uh, we can try it with groups too. So instead of saying something like I'm thinking about, yeah, let's just pick the scariest looking thing. Let's pick the scariest looking thing in 2020, 2026. Oh, there's a few that have my attention, but April. Let's go to April because there's all this stuff with Mars and Saturn coming. you know. And well, actually, before I do that, let's do a little more neutral one. Let's do Neptune. Because I've been having this talk with so many people, especially around their Saturn ruled stuff, because Saturn is in like the fog of Neptune right now. And I've been talking to people about confusion and uncertainty, which are mind states, experiences, feelings, sensations that go along with all of that. Most people don't like to be confused. I personally don't love to feel confused. It doesn't feel great. There's a lot of judgment, I think, sometimes, and even shame that can come with feeling confused. So, as we are talking about this potential, this field of possibility, how do I talk to people about a potential for being confused? What I don't say is, you're going to be confused. Oh, actually, let me back up. One other side point. So there's this is an ancillary point, but it's going to help build this whole thing. Another thing I try to do with talking about astrology, you can say may happen or will happen. You could be or you will be. Very, and granted, I'm saying the one dramatically. You will be or you could be. So it may happen, it will happen. Very different. They're different legally. Legally, those terms are very different too. And so that's another thing to think about, not only as you're talking about astrology, but as you're listening to it, listen. And this also is me, because there's no shade or judgment on any of these ways of talking about astrology, because it's so ingrained into the English language and into Western culture and how we talk about these things. This is like, I am still deconditioning, I am still unraveling, and it's a practice. And so you all probably hear me, and maybe you've heard me in the past, kind of revert, kind of the guitar strings get a little loose. And I might say something like, you will be, or, I might say, you know, you could be anxious. You could be anxious, not feel anxious, or there might be anxiousness or uh, anxiousness around, or there may be. But, if I ever revert to these things, just notice it and notice when other astrologers are using may versus will, or, if they're identifying people with feelings or not as they're talking about transits. Just notice it. You don't have to judge it, because again, this stuff is so deeply ingrained and we're all doing our best. But just notice it. And then you can undo that and be like, oh, well, I know that even if there's going to be some confusion around, or there could be confusion, that I don't have to say, I'm going to be confused. And instead, we're going to be more curious and be like, well, the weather patterning here, the astrology weather, that it's like how we look at a storm cloud. We're like, oh, that looks like a rainstorm coming. This temporary storm that comes through that also is not us. And we can see, oh, there's a Neptune thing coming. So that could be a few things. And one of the things is glamour. And another thing is spirituality. And maybe I'm going to be on point with the omen reading and the symbolic language. But also, there might be some confusion around. And I also like keeping it open-ended like that with language, not you will be confused, because it could be someone else's confusion. So I've had Neptune on my moon for 84 years. And Neptune on moon, the moon is my body. So maybe there's confusion around my body. And maybe that's my confusion, and it has been. And sometimes it's other people's confusion that affects my body. For instance, like someone thinking like the recipe and the ingredients are one thing, but it isn't. And their confusion affects my body. So, or their experience of that. So that open-endedness also reminds us that it might not be you. It could be just around you, in the community, in the collective, in your one-on-one partnerships or something. Who knows? But that was how I was talking about Neptune. And I try to avoid saying, oh, you're going to be confused around siblings for 2, 3 years. No, we're going to talk about it. And I realize that a lot of this takes more words. And usually I go the other way. I'm like, we don't need so many words. But this one, I'm like, no, it feels worth it. I think I'm going to put in the extra effort to just make this a little clearer. and say there is sadness instead of I'm sad. It's more syllables, but I think it's worth it in this case. And like with semantics, also, it was funny because I was just talking with someone in my comment section about semantics and certain choice of words based on certain situations and what the best word choice is and the considerations that go around. And it's funny because now I've landed in another one. This is another one where, it might be semantics, but I do think word choice is important and that it matters and that it has an effect on our minds. So, yeah, let's see. I think those were all of my thoughts. Maybe one more example. Let's look at the April thing because how do we talk about, you know, this is going to be hard. And how do we listen to other astrologers who are inevitably going to be like, the sky is falling, the sky is falling, when this Mars and I don't want to downplay it. This is going to be some difficult, icky things for some people. Definitely. It doesn't look great. And we have one every 2 years. So if you take your age divided by two, and that's how many of these you've been through at different parts of your chart, so not all of them are created equal. Different planets will be the lords of your year, the time lords. So, maybe Mars and Saturn won't be your time lords. Maybe Aries won't be a perfected place for you or anything. So, all of those nuances aside, I'm going to try not to say, you're going to feel frustrated and there's going to be, everything's going to get in your way. What I want to say is there's a higher probability for experiences of frustration, or there's a higher probability for frustrating experiences to happen. There's a higher probability that there might be some frustration around, either for you or for others. So there are ways we can roll language around and kind of, instead of just saying, finding a different way than saying, and we have to be creative. So, it is asking a little bit of effort of us. And at the same time, I think there are other ways than just saying, you will be frustrated. Yeah. Or there will be obstacles. I'm going to say, yeah, there's going to be higher probability that there's going to be slowdowns, delays that you might experience, some slowdowns or delays. And then no, prepare for that on that day, leave earlier for work, and then I like to talk about more practical things you can do instead of just focusing on the boogie oogie kind of thing coming. So again, no shade to anyone if you feel like, shoot, is that me? Have I been saying this? You and everyone else, and me included, all of us. I mean, like, I guarantee if you start listening for it, you're going to hear it everywhere. It is just the accepted way of talking about these things. And again, that's because it is so deeply, deeply ingrained in our language in the West. And of course, I'm coming from this kind of white lady, Western centric thing, but we're the ones with the problem. Like the Buddhists are not the ones that have this problem. They've got the solution figured out. And if I wouldn't have gotten into that, I would have never run into this. And I've been very encouraged because I have been hearing people online talk about that. And I mean, I'm also learning Spanish right now. And I notice sometimes in Spanish as well, they say like, instead of I'm hungry, it's like yo tengo hambre. It's like I have hunger. It's like I have hunger. I am not hungry. I have hunger. It's a different way, kind of maybe a bad example, but same idea. Different languages have different ways that affect the mind differently. And this is also why I've talked about this with a few friends, like why just English language being everywhere actually is to our detriment in a lot of ways. That's a whole other talk for a whole different day. So yeah, it's a learning curve. I'm on it actively, but I hope that helps some people. And again, even if you're a enjoyer of astrology and not someone who presents it, you can listen for these things non-judgmentally, but then you can do that de-identifying for yourself. Okay, I think those were my main points. I have one more little thing. Of course, if anyone has any astrology questions, this is your chance. I have so many little things for Saturn and Aries. I keep thinking about Uncle Iroh. Did anyone watch Avatar? Not Avatar. What's the show with the elements? Is that it? Hold on. I'm having a brain fart. Yeah, Avatar. I was I was getting confused the series with like the James Cameron film that I have not seen. They're both Avatar. Huh. I don't know why my brain just put that together. But does anyone know Uncle Iroh? Because Uncle Iroh needs to be like our main guy to like channel during Saturn and Aries. Just being this firm, kind presence amidst all the fire. Yeah, Avatar: The Last Airbender. Thank you. Yeah, I got some Uncle Iroh fans in the crowd. Um, that's who I'm gonna I want to put like a little picture of them on my desk because they just give such a great answer to whatever the difficulty of that energy is. So just bring up Uncle Iroh when you're feeling spicy. Maybe I'm projecting because I have a Saturn ruled ascendant, and so I feel that spice pretty strongly when they went in there last June, July, August, when Saturn went into Aries for the first time. I felt the heat. I felt the spice. Uh, and I had to very much channel my inner Uncle Iroh. Yeah, that was May 24th to September 1st. So if anyone at this point, now that we're a little removed, if you can remember what was going on those first few months when Saturn went into Aries, that was your preview. And now after February 13th, they're going to go back in there. And there was another person besides Uncle Iroh that I wanted to give us as an example. Did I lose it? Nope, I found it. Okay, I found this via Alexandra Kane, who is a writer on Substack, and they are a Buddhist person, and so they're usually writing from that lens. So Alexandra Kane, definitely check them out. But they weren't talking about astrology at all. They're not doing that. But they brought up a teaching by someone called Mio, Fudō Myōō. I'm going to put it in the chat and I'll put it below. I should have beforehand. But this is some kind of deity or god. So they teach us to sit inside the fire. This is a quote. Fudō Myōō teaches us, sit inside the fire, but do not be consumed. Bind the chaos, cut through delusion, hold steady, essentially hold steady when whatever wants you inflamed. So sit inside the fire, do not be consumed, bind the chaos, cut through delusion, hold steady when inflamed. And apparently they did that. In Japanese Esoteric Buddhism, they're a fierce figure. That's who they are. Sorry, my notes are so in the wrong order. Another name for them that I'm definitely mispronouncing is called Immovable Wisdom King. So it's the Immovable Wisdom King that tells us to sit inside the fire without being consumed. The Immovable Wisdom King is cutting through delusion. So we can use that as, I think, encouragement. I love that. It just felt very much like this firm Saturn mountain figure, just like very firmly not being changed, not being transformed in some ways by any inflammation, any temporary things going on around it. So maybe that'll be helpful for some people. Otherwise, shorthand, Uncle Iroh. There's the Immovable Wisdom King part. I love that. And then one last thing about this transit, and this is something that I don't know, maybe I shouldn't put too many eggs into this basket, but I'm going to. when we get Saturn into Aries, we're going to have a period of time where Saturn in or Mars in Aquarius is going to have this mutual reception. So when does this actually start? So February 13th is when it'll start. And then until March 2nd. So February 13th to March 2nd. It's like 2 weeks, I guess, where we have a mutual reception between Mars and Saturn. So Saturn is in Mars's sign, and Mars is in Saturn's sign of Aquarius. And so they're going to be working better together than you would think otherwise, or more constructively. They're in a sextile, so it feels like a mitigation. I think this is a mitigation. So there's some gnarly weather, you know, coming in spring, but at least when it comes to these two malefics, there's a little window here. And I did actually choose this for an election for someone who wanted to do something in the first quarter of 2026. I was like, let's do the mutual reception. Maybe it'll make it work better. So just know that that's there. That's worth noting. Thanks for listening, everyone. Last call for questions. We got one here. How would you interpret a solar eclipse conjunct your ascendant? I'm a bit nervous as I'm going to be experiencing this transit with the nodal shift. Oh, yeah, me too. In Leo and Aquarius. Any tips for navigating that energy? Yeah, how do we navigate eclipse energy when it's right on our stuff? So you must also be, yeah, you must also be an Aquarius rising, I assume. We're going to have that February solar eclipse in Aquarius. So let's look at that one. Yeah. So here we go. We've got on February 17th, a solar eclipse at the end of Aquarius. So it's like a new moon on steroids, which is kind of an oxymoron because it's kind of a low energy time, but the eclipses kind of dash that away. Eclipses are very energetic, kind of regardless. These nodal places where the sun and moon meet, these mark where the sun and the moon are at the same height in the sky and they're able to start blocking each other out. And it's a very unstable energy, and it is highly energetic and unstable. So I don't like to root things into these. I don't like to begin stuff or start new things or new projects during one of these. If, because we do work with people who don't do astrology, if you're at work and someone's like, oh, here's a promotion, your new job starts today, and it's on, a solar eclipse or something, like, then just know that whatever that thing is that starts during an eclipse, it's like seated in these 6-month increments. It's a 6-month clock, essentially, that you're now on. But yeah, I try to avoid drama. I love people from afar who are being wild. If you can, sometimes the drama finds you anyway. It's new chapters. So chapters closing, chapters beginning, important chapters closing and beginning around, in this case, for an Aquarius rising, that would be yourself, your sense of self, like your identities, your physical body or appearance, your wardrobe, even in terms of your appearance. It could be new chapters, closing, opening around anything with health, because the first house is mind, body, spirit. So it's the physical body, it's the immaterial self. Um, yeah, that's pretty important when it's in your first house. So like I wouldn't go roller skating next to the Grand Canyon on this day. Don't do dangerous stuff. Mars is here. Take care of yourself, move slower. Um, kind of like when an eclipse happens and the light is all weird and the animals are a little skeptical. Likewise, we should be a little skeptical. So I also am not going to be roller skating on or at the edge of the Grand Canyon during this eclipse. Keep an eye on stuff. Take good care of yourself, especially around pointy objects. Mars is here. It could be the new chapters are going to be involving something martial from the third or 10th house in this case. So something around voice, communication, writing, career. So be on your best behavior, I guess. Because things that you say, public things, may or may not have a greater impact here. But it is definitely something that I say you have a front row seat for, or you have a front row seat to that experience. So it's worth watching. Now, another thing to consider is, are you in a year that highlights sun or moon? So are you in a profection year where the place that it lands on is Cancer, Leo, or are you in a year where Aquarius is activated? So then things happening here would be more important. If the answer is yes, then you need to watch this and be careful and take care of yourself and avoid drama. If you are not in a sun or moon year, if Saturn is not your time lord and like Aquarius isn't activated for any reason, then this might not be the biggest headline for you, even if it is in your first house. So keep some of those things in mind. Might still be important, but maybe not like the headline for your year. I think that's I think that's what I have to say about that. Let me make sure I read your question. Solar eclipses as well, like the North Node, it's worth noting any eclipse, is it near the South Node or the North Node? And North Node eclipses, which the solar eclipse is one, even though it's kind of like this, it's a energy of beginning. The North Node is about growth, expansion, not very stable expansion. It can be a bit more chaotic or almost too much of something. So, if you get a new wardrobe or something, or you say, I'm gonna only wear stretchy pants from now on, make sure you don't like overdo it and get like 800 pairs of stretchy pants. Like just get like five. So there's something increasing or expansive about this, for better or for worse. So there's a lot of caveats and nuances. I mean, you can use me as a guinea pig if you're an Aquarius rising, if I got that right, because I'll also be experiencing that. Granted, I think it's also worth noting maybe the degrees. If you have your ascendant at very late Aquarius, it's going to be all the more louder. It's just going to be louder and louder the closer it is by degree. So it might be a louder eclipse for someone with late Aquarius rising versus me that has more of an early Aquarius rising. So, uh, great question. Yeah, maybe you just get bangs. Maybe you just like, I don't know, uh, wax your eyebrows for the first time. It could be small things or big things. And then someone has a question about familial synastry. I mean, yeah, I don't see why not. I think that's up my alley. I'm not like I'm not a family therapist or anything, of course, but you know that. Oh, okay. Before I go to the synastry question, and give me the birth data or whatever below. I need the data. Uh, and then, yeah, if you're a Leo rising, let's do that for fun. So let's say you're a Leo rising and you're having this solar eclipse in your, oh, kind of go the day before. Close enough. We'll pretend. Pretend like that's an exact solar eclipse. If it's happening in your seventh, so now this is new chapters, chapters closing, chapters opening around partnerships, or it is the other people and the other people are stealing your transit and it's the partners that are having the new chapter open up. It might not even be about you. It might actually be your partners having some new thing open up or conclude, or within partnership. And then within partnership, that can be romantic partners, business partners, best friends, or if you have patient or clients, that is also the seventh house. So if, say, professionally, you are getting a different set of patients than you normally get, or you're working with a different population than you're used to working with, that would be a bigger event, a new chapter opening up in the place of other or business associates. best friends. So it can be a new chapter in how you approach friendship or partnership in this place, that more internal, abstract outcome, or it could be something external that's more obvious. So, yeah, this one's more about partnerships and others than about the first house of self. Okay, neat. I'm glad that I found that. Okay, let's go to the family synastry question. And maybe I don't need their data. So you've got person A has a lot of spirit, the same degree as person B's ascendant. Okay, I'm gonna draw this. So, lot of spirit on ascendant. If I want to explore this more and figure out if it works in our chart's lives. If I want to explore this more and figure out it works in our chart's lives. ZR? Hold on, I might need you to restate this because I'm a little lost. I got the first part, but the second sentence isn't working so well for me. Yeah, can you restate your question? I think we can figure it out, but I need help. Like, are you wondering like the symbolism of someone's lot of spirit being conjunct the ascendant, or because you're asking something else about zodiacal releasing, and that I don't know if we can do any kind of, yeah. If I want to explore this more and figure out how it works in our charts lives, might be with the limited characters allowed. Okay. Um, so I'm just gonna do my best and please DM me. We can talk about this too in DMs if we need to flesh it out more, but I'm just gonna tell you what I would do with this. What I would do and the limits of what I might do if I saw someone's lot on my thing. So here we have someone's lot of spirit. Person B has a lot of spirit on person A's ascendant. So then the symbolism of the lot of spirit, this speaks to person B's will, what they might want to move toward in this life. It's a solar type of point, so it's very focused on the sun, the will. We can start to talk about life path and career with the lot of spirit. So then there's some intersection here of person A with the ascendant and person B and what they might want to move toward. Like their will might be carrying them in such a way that they just run into people like person A. So that's a thing. Or in the course of person B's career, they meet person A. It's like person A shows up in their lot of spirit career. Their person A shows up in person B's life path. Someone's person B's life path is maybe going to involve person A. So I can see that. I can totally do that. That's rad. That's fine. I'd do the same thing if like the lot of Eros was on someone's ascendant. I'd be like, what might you find yummy or sexy? Maybe this person, or maybe as person B is going about what they enjoy, they run into someone like person A. So I think we can do that. I think we can totally do that. But then I think I might limit it in terms of like timing stuff. So like if you're looking at, say, person B who had that lot of spirit, like if I'm looking at their zodiacal releasing, I'm going to look at that really solely from the perspective of that person B and their lot of spirit and their zodiacal releasing. And I'm probably not going to intersect that in any way with the synastry bit, if that makes sense. Yeah, because like the zodiacal releasing is going to be very relative for that person. Um, I mean, in another breath, one interesting thing with synastry is when you're comparing two people, not only can you compare them natally and do the whole Davison or composite chart or midpoints or whatever, But you can also think about synastry in terms of timing and timing techniques. And then say if you have a certain pattern that either very much jives with your partner or not, like if say you have similarities and maybe you have annually profected places that are the same or the opposite, or say you have certain things popping off in your zodiac or releasing at the same time. That would be really interesting. But yeah, I think I would leave it at just doing the symbolism of the conjunction of those two things natally. And I'm probably not going to bring timing into it in this case. So I hope that helps you in your own exploration. And my limitations on what I do, that's for me. You can do whatever you want, technically. You know, there's no rules here except for, the rules that are from the books. And so if you want to experiment and see if you can find whatever you're looking at, like, I mean, don't let my limitations like hold you back, but that's where I am with it. Yeah, great question. Because yeah, the lots, they count. That's really good. I'm really happy you brought that up because that's something that I think I even kind of sleep on or forget or just I'm looking at so many other things and there's just as much good info when you look at synastry wise how someone's lots are falling in each other's charts. That totally counts. Excellent question. And someone's asking about car registration. Have you been told about your car's limited warranty? When would you recommend doing car registration inspection updates, especially if it's already expired? Okay, that is going to depend on your birth chart. And I would love for, I mean, in general, like Mercury being in good condition is going to be helpful. So, not a Mercury retrograde, usually. Mercury's in charge of details, facts, logistics, information. And so I want them to be functional. So there's like a Mercury retrograde coming up. It's like February 26th to March 20th. I wouldn't do anything around there. And then I would also want to know what your rising sign is. And then I want you to find the Lord of your second and third houses. And I want both of those planets to be in good shape too. So in this case, I guess maybe I'll ask, what is your rising sign? Car registration? Cranberry? Well, I'll just pretend. So let's pretend that you are a Leo rising. Then I want Mercury, who's in charge of Virgo here, in charge of your money. I would like them to be in good condition. And then also in this case, Venus would be the Lord of the third house of short distance travel. Oh, I thought of a third thing. But yeah, them being in good shape just in terms of like cars, commutes. I put cars in the second and the third. It's a possession that helps this travel. So look at the lords of your second and third houses and also the ninth. Sometimes the ninth house is about like politics, bureaucracy, institutions, going to the DMV, like very institutional. Like the ninth house is government, university, church, all the same building 2,000 years ago in a lot of places. So maybe the Lord of the Ninth as well. Or, yeah, know that if you have, say, Saturn transiting through your ninth house or your third or your second, there could be some challenges around what you're trying to do. So, kind of, okay, Scorpio rising. Scorpio rising. So that would be, let's do it again. You can see the demonstration again. So your second house is ruled by Jupiter. Your third house is ruled by Saturn. Saturn's so slow, I often don't get a choice in the matter. Um, Moon rules your ninth. So we want Jupiter to be in good condition. They are. Jupiter's kicking ass right now. So anytime between now and this is the widest, get it done before June 30th. Now you may have better luck, I guess, when Jupiter is direct, which is going to be shortly, I don't care so much about when Jupiter's retrograde because Jupiter's retrograde like 4 months at a time. It's more the stations that I care about, and especially the retrograde station, which already happened. So this might actually go along even better after March, but I don't, it sounds like you can't really wait, like you can't really wait that long. So I'm going to just go back to my first answer and say right now is a good time because Jupiter is in good shape. They're exalted in Cancer, and they're not as in good shape anymore after June 30th of 2026. So, okay, yay, Jupiter, they're doing great. They're also in your ninth. So that is really going to help out with any bureaucracy or any kind of institutional stuff you got to do. Yeah, Jupiter's helping out with that, sending some love beams down there. And Saturn is with Neptune. So yeah, there could be some confusion around whether it's, finding the right forms or, knowing exactly where to hand them in, but just kind of keep taking the next step, the next step. Some of the short distance travel things are things with cars, kind of walking through the fog. Just keep taking the next couple, 2, 3 steps to take. Might be kind of unclear how it's going to turn out. It sounds like there is some uncertainty, like it's expired, what happens? I don't know. That sounds like natural. And overall, this looks like kind of a better dispositor tree situation than after February 13th. So maybe try to get it done. As much as I don't love Neptune around, maybe better before February 13th. Because after February 13th, then Saturn's going into the 6th. Aries is, according to Vedic Valens, hard on offenders. So I don't want you getting stamped with some harshness. So yeah, try to get it done. Yeah, maybe before February 13th. Final answer. Yep, and that would get us before the... Oh, thank you, KWOW. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Yeah, so final answer, car registration, Scorpio rising. Please do it before February 13th of 2026. Final answer. Let me see if there's any other good questions. Well, all the questions are good. Uh, Someone was looking at a transit to the Davison chart with someone, and this Aquarius eclipse is going to be, oh yeah. So yeah, transits to the Davison chart. Oh, I love transits to the Davison chart. Man, they hit so good. Definitely check out if you both have your birth times and the chart and squish them together and then look at the transits on there. That's going to tell you stuff. I have not checked in with my Davison charts in a minute. I've got like 3 people that I follow regularly that I'm in a relationship with of some kind. And yeah, I'm kind of a control freak secretly. So I'm always like, what? What is coming? All right. Best of luck, friends. Thank you so much. It's always really fun when people are here and asking questions and listening to me say stuff. Thank you for letting me have my little soapbox about language. Because I think like, okay, we got this outer planet transit thing, Uranus, Pluto, Neptune, all doing their boat. And let me actually show you the boat. Here we go. Maybe it's not a boat. Now it's a boat. Do, do, do. Okay, now it's a boat. So it only happens once every like hundreds of years or so. And it's these major changes. And I did start off talking about this as like progress, but as clearly as we can see, some places in the world, there's like drastic, quick-paced change, but not necessarily in a better direction for everyone. And when I say better, I specifically mean increasing the quality of life for people. Some of the ways this direction of this rapid change is happening is not toward an increased quality of life. It is, in America at least, quite going far away from increased quality of life. Um, but I do think one of the things we can do is, yeah, do the up leveling, do the upward spiral, do the glow up. And the glow up of our astrologer language, and I think our kind of internal monologue, dialogue thing, is one of not associating ourselves with our feelings all the time. So it's not that we ignore them or we don't care about them or anything at all. It's just giving a little space, a little buffer, so we feel a little bit less kind of drugged down by it. I think that's it. I don't have any other things. Do I have a discount code? I think it goes till February. Hold on one second. Uh, yep, 12% off all of my services. It's Solstice, SOLSTICE, um, until February 1st. So all of my services, 12% off through the month of January. And then the next discount code I have is going to be around the spring fall equinox. So watch for that. I also have a sliding scale. You can email me. I don't ask any questions. You just have to say, I want a sliding scale reading. And I'll be like, okay. And then we'll do it. So it's pretty straightforward. You can look at the FAQ, the frequently asked questions, on my website, www.aligninglightastrology.com. I know my own website, I promise. I've got all my events on there, past appearances, my writings, my newsletter sign up. If you sign up for my newsletter, I'll tell you the discount code when it comes right into your inbox. I think that's it. Thanks, everybody. I'm still doing all my normal stuff. Book a reading if you want, or say hi in the DMs on Instagram. Oh, I am going to turn off all of my YouTube comments for 2026. So that's a big change. I probably should have started with that. The Mars year is Marsing. I'm in a Mars year and I can tell. And the YouTube comments have been some very good and invigorating and constructive. But unfortunately, I've just been getting so many empty or destructive comments that I'm going to take the warning. I'm going to like listen. When someone tells you about themselves, they say pay attention. When someone tells you who they are, listen. My Mars year is showing me who it is, and I'm like, I need to listen. This is a spicy year, and so I think I just need to remove the conditions that are even allowing for this to happen. And I don't want to limit access to me, but it's either this or I go on Patreon, kind of. And there's also so many other ways to contact me. So email. You can always email me. If there's anything wrong with anything I ever say, you can email me. And my email is aligninglighastro@gmail.com. I usually take 2 to 3 days to respond. If it's more than a week, send a search party. Something's wrong. But yeah, usually I respond within a week. Um, December doesn't count. December, I totally fall off the map because of holidays. I realized I think I left some in my inbox for like a month. It was because it was the holidays. But yeah, you can DM me on Instagram, in the DMs. Apparently there's DMs on Threads, but I keep Threads off my phone. And so I don't really get into the DMs very often on Threads. But just email me or yeah, send me a DM. We don't need the comments. I'm just going to try it as an experiment. I might open them back up after this year. It might actually be 2 years because we'll see. Um, there's other ways to get a hold of me. But I have a lot to do this year. I have way too much to do. Just to give you an idea, I pulled my card for the year, my tarot card for my annual tarot drawing, and it was the 10 of Wands reversed, which can mean a few things, but it can mean that I got too many sticks, I got too many wands, and they all fall down. because there's just too many irons in the fire. I got too much going on. Definitely, as 2026 opened up, I was like, wow, I have so many things I want to do and accomplish. And so I have to be so careful about where I put my energy. And so that's also a little bit of what's behind this decision to turn off my YouTube comments sometime in the near future here, because I just need to channel my energy so strongly this year to get to where I need to go, which is a bunch of goals, bunch of goals. So anyway, I'm rambling. Have a good night, everyone. Have a good month. I will be here again at the end of the month. My February forecast is going to be sometime because I haven't scheduled. No, did I? I thought I scheduled it. It's on my channel. It's at the end of the month. I don't have it in front of me when it is. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your generosity. I appreciate it. Uh, I know you guys are being so sweet about the comments. I know I can't. And part of it's on me because I like don't have the restraint. I just like, I can try to be cool, but like, I'm sitting there in meditation, just like thinking about how I have to respond to this thing. It's getting in the way of my meditation. It's leaking onto stuff when I'm on the pillow. So it's actually part of me too that I can't seem to have the compartmentalization to like, so I don't know. I don't know why, but I'm just gonna do this experiment. But you all are correct. I shouldn't be letting it get to me like that. Uh yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna control my environment a little bit. Just a little bit. I feel a little bad, but not that bad. It's a Mars year. I have a day chart. I have a day chart, and there's a connection between Mars and my third of my what I say, and the 10th house in public. And I am always this close from getting myself into some trouble. I have to, I don't think people realize, like I seem like kind of even keel because but I try so hard to be this way. Um, man, yeah. It's so hard for me not to just I have to use so much restraint. Let's just say that. For being a Saturn person, I'm also very Mars, and it's just constantly like me wanting to do something and then me restraining myself because we know that effing around often leads to finding out. So yeah, I'm just removing the conditions entirely. But thank you for understanding, everyone. For anyone who's upset, I'm sorry, email me, but thank you for understanding. And I wanted to explain that because I'm sure people would be confused if I didn't. So thank you, everyone. I'll see you at the end of the month. And until then, I'll see you online on the interwebs.